Hey guys, this is the Ganzo F759. This is a design copy of the Byrd Meadowlark. You can see that very clearly right here. The Byrd Meadowlark in turn is a cheaper version of the Spyderco Delica. Now, my first Delica was a saber ground Delica, and although I liked it, I really didn't click with it at that particular time. I've started to like the Endura model, and that's why I'm very much into the Delica models now. And about 4 or 5 months ago, I saw this one come out, and it only cost about $8, so I bought it. I wanted to see what it will do. That was one of the reasons, but the main reason was the price, $8. Even if this was gonna be a flimsy knife, a crappy knife, you cannot get a 440C bladed folder for $8 anywhere. So I bought it. First things I did was blacken the clip, change the edge angle, and put it in a sharpening choil. And then I started using it more and more. I took it with me on vacation because it's an $8 knife. If I'm gonna lose it or break it, I'm not gonna be too sad about it. I took it snorkeling. I left it wet overnight. It developed some rust spots. They all came out with use except for right here. I'm not sure you can see that. And the spring inside. I could open it up and clean it. I don't care too much about it. It cost me $8, so I'm just gonna use it, see when it fails, if it fails. But I did a good job. Afterwards, I started testing it, comparing it to the Meadowlark and the Delicas. By itself, it did a good job. I mean, you do have the choil. That's why I'm happy that this is a Meadowlark copy, not a Delica copy. You see, you don't have this finger choil here with the Delica. Now you can choke up on it, but it doesn't feel as comfortable and it's not as stable as you using this choil. So I started working with it. I took a piece of beech wood, I think it was, and I started cutting with it. And although the Meadowlark has a slightly larger edge angle, it is not as sharp. That's not my knife. It belongs to a friend of mine. I wasn't paying attention to how deep it bit into the wood or how easy it went. I was paying more attention to the feel in hand. And this one felt pretty good. Now with all backlocks, you will get this problem. Whenever you encounter harder materials, the blade will push on the backlock, it will move it. And you'll feel a sort of a play. And a lot of people have told me that. They have asked me, hey, I always, whenever I cut materials, I feel like I have some blade play. And I try to explain and send them over to my Endura video. That's what happens with backlocks, with regular backlocks. Now, I never tried Cold Steel's Triad lock. I assume that one wouldn't have that problem because it has an extra element that blocks the blade and it doesn't, the backlock does not take the full force. So I felt that a bit, but other than that, I was pretty happy. I mean, cuts in well and does a good job. And I sometimes tend to choke up on it. Still here, it's comfortable. But holding it by the handle regularly, no problem. And then I moved over to the Meadowlark. A larger edge angle, not as sharp. And I started cutting. The slivers were not as big. It didn't bite in as deep. But I noticed it felt better in hand for some reason. Even though the handle shape is the same, you have the choil, you can choke up on it. It feels just as comfortable, you know, thin part here. Very small difference between the jimpings. Moving back on the handle, the Meadowlark feels a bit more stable. Then I picked up the Delica. Now here, you don't want to choke up on the blade. It's uncomfortable. if you hold it like this, it is very uncomfortable, to me at least. So you want to get a nice full grip on the handle, and you can, because the model, the Delica model, is famous, I think, mainly because of the big handle. And here you get a really good feel in the hand. Now, you cannot compare folders to fixed blades, but if you compare folders amongst themselves, wow, this is a really good feel in the blade, in the hand, and it feels more stable. And I bought this ZDP 189 Delica because I wanted to test ZDP 189. But a short while after, I bought this Delica. It's a VG10 version, like the blue one, but this one had serrations, and I wanted to test serrations because people say, you know, there are some areas where serrations are good, and I always thought that's not true. But I said, let's keep an open mind, try them out. I did. Turns out, for me, I was right all along. Serrations are good for nothing. I always prefer a sharp, fine edge blade than a sharp or unsharp serrated blade. So a friend of mine, who has a belt grinder, removed the serrations for me, and I refined the edge and turned it into sort of a Scandi Vex, if you want to call it. It's a high convex here. The edge angle is about 12 degrees per side, so naturally this will bite in deeper. But what I was not expecting was this to be more stable than the full flat ground version. And I said, whoa, is this a fluke? And then I tried my ZDP 189, and I had the same feeling. Even though this edge angle is a bit larger, in hand, I felt this as stable as this, and more than the full flat ground version. So you pay $8 for better steel than the Meadowlark, less stability, good performance, I would say, peace of mind, because if you lose it, well, you lost $8. Now, there is one flaw, and I must be honest, I did not notice this until after I tested for stability, because then that was the first time I started looking inside. Is this different? It seems a bit thinner, it seems a bit larger, it seems a bit... However, and then I also looked at the handle. I'm gonna pick out the blue model because I think you're gonna see it better. You see, Spyderco has this bidirectional texturing where the scales come down here in order to keep your hand from moving up on the blade, and in this direction in order to keep your hand moving off the handle, which makes sense, right? You want to work something and you don't want your hands to get on the blade, even if you're wet or you have greasy hands from cutting up food, and you don't want to slide off the handle. It makes perfect sense. And the Meadowlark has the same thing. Now, it's not such a pleasant feel as with the Delicas, but you have bidirectional texturing to keep your hand from going up on the blade or slipping off the handle. With the F759, you don't have that. You have one directional texturing going this way to keep your hand from sliding off the handle, which makes sense. If you're gonna slice things, you want to have grip. But if you want to work with finer tasks and don't want to choke up, it's not going to keep your hand from sliding on to the blade. Now, yes, you can choke up, and if you want to make a hole or do some really fine tasks, you're probably going to use the choil and the jimping. And I must admit, I'm not a fan of jimping, but in some cases, like this one, it makes sense. So it's not such a huge issue, but it's something they missed. I'm happy with it. I carried it on vacation, I carried it around the cabin, and whenever somebody asked me for a knife. Sometimes I'm hesitant to give them my my Delicas to work with, but I'm never hesitant to pass this knife on to somebody if they just want to cut a steak or some wood or some dirty materials. I really have no issues because this was an $8 knife, and for $8 I think it's a good deal. I mean, 440C steel blade, it's never a bad choice, especially if the heat treatment is right. And with this one, I did get a small chip right here, but that was probably from me cutting stuff underwater. I took it snorkeling and I cut all sorts of rope and plastic from underwater and dragged it back to shore. I must have nicked a stone or a steel cable or something. Other than that, really no issues. And it's still sharp. I don't take care of it. I don't take care of my Ganzos in general, but I didn't take care of it. It still cuts. It will not shave. Or oh no, the tip did take off some hairs. So yeah, but this part, no, this one will not. No, but the tip did take off some hairs. So yeah, in my opinion, it's $8 well spent. Guys, if you have some questions about F759 from Ganzo, just add them in the comment section. I'll get to them as soon as possible. I'd like to thank you for watching, and as always, I wish you all a great day.